TNN Motorsports presents the American Sports Cavalcade. A panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
Each year, North Carolina and Rockingham International Dragway host the elite from the ranks of NHRA Winston Championship Drag Racing. They are the champions, led by the men of Top Fuel, 8 of the finest cars and crews, challenging to see who can take home the $25,000 winner's purse. Of course, the fiberglass-bodied nitro rockets of the funny car ranks take a backseat to no one when it comes to raw excitement and crowd-pleasing performance. An equally impressive cash bonus awaits the likes of Force, Hoffman, Pedregon, and Oswald. But it is from the ranks of the full-bodied marbles known as Pro Stock that the difference between champion and also-ran can be measured in thousandths of a second. $16,000 await the man with enough concentration, nerve, and raw courage to tame an unforgiving racetrack and emerge as the best of the best. The elite of Winston Championship Drag Racing. Cash bonuses for top qualifiers have already been awarded, and Jerry Eckman took the $10,000 in Pro Stock, while Cruz Pedregon topped the 8-car field in Funny Car, and Eddie Hill, fresh off a great win at the Gator Nationals, continues the record performances here. Race cars going on their 5th season are not supposed to do what Eddie Hill's car is doing. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Evans, and welcome to the money tree they call the Winston Invitational. Eddie Hill, a lot of so-called drag racing experts, including maybe yours truly, said that even though you set the record 2 weeks ago at 480, that this old car with the motor way out couldn't run this well in Rockingham. We're eating our words.
Well, what can I say? The old car does have some magic in it. It worked very well here. And of course, we were lucky to guess that close on the chin-up, but we'll take a little good luck. We've had plenty of bad.
$10,000, not a bad day's work for 4.91 seconds.
Oh, yeah, we need the money, too. We need to buy some more parts.
You feeling good?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, the car feels good, too. Did you notice how good it sounded a while ago?
Oh, boy.
That's the way it sounded at Gainesville.
Okay, go get them.
We're going to try to.
What's the funny car story? Well, let's check in with Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, that beautiful Oldsmobile body on that funny car, Cruz Pedregon's out of the Larry Minor team, is sitting pretty right now. Number 1 qualifier here at Rockingham. And Cruz, first of all, congratulations. But nonetheless, a $10,000 check already in the old bank account and a good shot at the overall victory.
Yeah, we're happy with the number 1 qualifying position, but it's a new day today. There's people out there like Forrest Hoffman that can step up, so we're going to definitely be on our toes today.
Cruz, you got yourself a sunny day, but it's chilly with a pretty good wind. Is that going to bother the race car at all?
No, actually, the conditions are very similar to our 526 number 1 spot, so we're looking forward to keeping it into the 20s today and winning this thing.
Go get them. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, Cruz Pedregon. And now, for more on the Pro Stock story, let's go to our broadcast partner, Big Daddy Don Garlits.
Thank you, Brock. This is the front end of the hottest Trans Am Pontiac on the Winston circuit today, driven by Jerry Eckman. He came into this race, he set a 7:17, a new track record, low ET of the event. Going up to the starting line, he picks up $10,000 prize money for that low ET. He gets by the first round with a 7:21, but Warren Johnson ran 7:19, Jerry. It seems like he's hot on your heels. Can you handle him?
Don, I don't know. We're going to handle him. You know, he's on the opposite side of the ladder. And if we get to the final and he's there, I'm going to mash on it with both feet.
Sounds good to me. Okay, the top fielders are ready to go with round 1. Let's get it on.
Thank you, Don. This indeed is round 1 for Top Fuel, as it will be for the funny cars that follow. These were 8-car fields here at the Winston Invitational. Pro Stock, about twice the size, 16 cars. They have already run first round. When we next see them, it'll be round number 2. With that all said, let's ride along with Joe Amato as he does his burnout to meet up with Corey McClanathan.
Well, McClanathan and Amato are both very close in qualifying, just over 5 seconds. We only had a couple of sessions in qualifying here. One was rained out, but we really haven't had monster times showing up here in qualifying, Big.
Well, Brock, when that last session was rained out last night, it sure put a damper on some of these cars. They were expecting to get that final run. In some cars, they kind of creep up on. They don't give it their best shot right at first. So I think a lot of cars and teams were disappointed when they didn't get that final qualifying. It could affect this first round.
Well, neither Amato nor McClanathan have run in the fours here. Few have. I think that could happen now and probably would have happened in that session yesterday. You're absolutely right, Don Carlos. And it's taking a while to get these motors up to temperature. It's that chilly. In fact, there was ice on the racetrack when we first got out here this morning.
Well, there was ice all over my golf cart before I could move. You notice you're backing up real slow. That's to put some temperature in these cylinder heads.
Joe Amato, the only four-time Top Fuel champion from Old Forge, Pennsylvania, has won one race this year, and that was in Houston just about a month ago. Corey McClanathan, Anaheim, California, came out of the alcohol dragster ranks. He is still looking for his first big win with the Nitro cars, but with his crew chief, Jimmy Prock, doing a fine job, that could happen at any race this season.
Both cars staging very carefully. This could be a very good race. These cars qualified very close. A 5:01 for Amato and a 5:05 for Corey.
You're riding with Joe Amato. Amato, a little bit late off the mark. They both smoked the tires. It is Amato there first at a 5:01 to a losing 5:23. But McClanathan had such a good start off the starting line. He made it look a little closer than the times might indicate. 17/100ths of a second was the differential at the finish line. Well, here comes Eddie Hill being towed into the staging lanes. He will face off with Doug Herbert at Top Fuel round number 1 when we come back to Rockingham Dragway in the Sand Hills of North Carolina.
Back at the Winston Invitational, we had a look earlier at Gene Snow, who did not make the 8-car field because of this. What happened, Big Daddy?
Well, I was standing about 10 feet away from it, and I said, well, when Gene stepped on it, this is when it would blow up. Sure enough, the head gasket's pushed out, the flames came out as you saw, and then the rods out the bottom, and the oil went all over the drag strip.
So Gene Snow missed the show. Right now, though, we've got Ed McCullough and Kenny Bernstein doing burnouts. But before we see them racing round 1, let's go down to Steve Evans.
Well, Joe, a 5:01, the first round could be the toughest.
Well, it always is, especially the way the track conditions have changed around. You know, we had a little trouble yesterday qualifying. We smoked the tires, and then it rained. So we're really happy to get a 5:01 in the win light. We're just taking one round at a time. If there was about 7 other guys out there in that first round, they want to rip our heart out.
Not this time.
All right, there's Bernstein coming off that 301-mile-an-hour run at the Gator Nationals. Going against this man, Ed McCullough, in a beautiful race car. Great team with a Larry Minor backing, but he has not yet made it past round 1 this year, Big Daddy.
And this is a brand new race car, but he says he likes it. It really feels good, and it's just exactly what it's going to take to get him past round 1.
Past Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein became the world's fastest drag racer, the first to break the 300 barrier just 2 weeks ago at the Gator Nationals in Florida. Ed McCullough is debuting a brand new Al Swindle built car, but with a lot of influence from his crew chief, Lee Beard. The differences in this car, McCullough is further back in the car, the motor is further back in the car, all to put more weight on the rear tires for better traction. This is the kind of car that Lee Beard is used to running. Identical reaction times. Bernstein all over the racetrack. He has lost traction, so has McCullough, but McCullough hooks up just enough to win for his team with a 5:46. It wasn't pretty, but the speed still way up there, 284 miles per hour. Let's go to the starting line. Don is with Lee Beard.
You smoked the tires, but by gosh, you got the win light, Lee.
Well, sometimes you have to be lucky to get by a round of racing. Here, we were fortunate that he smoked the tires, and we came up here with a lot of horsepower. That's an awful tough car. He's run 300 miles an hour. You didn't want to come up here with anything soft. But you got to take it sometimes when you're lucky. Thank you.
Well, they sure needed that one in the Larry Minor crew. As we watched McCullough on the near lane, there is Bernstein going up in smoke. McCullough goes up shortly thereafter, but pedals it through the quarter mile to take the win. But a lot of smoke from both dragsters.
It's interesting to watch Ed McCullough's car trail the smoke off ever so slightly. He must have been just backpedaling.
Well, Ace, you danced around that one.
Well, you know, the racetrack was a little marginal. We were hopped up, you know, so was Kenny. Apparently he smoked the tires. I didn't see him, but I know we got loose out there, but we're lucky enough to get it into the next round.
Well, it may take Lee a few rounds to get a handle on a brand new racer.
Well, it's a brand new car. That was only the 4th run down the racetrack with it. So, you know, and conditions change here every half hour. So Lee's doing a hell of a job with this, and we'll be okay.
So spirits rise with the Larry Minor team as they move on here at the Winston Invitational. Right now, let's go down to the starting line where Michael Brotherton moves into position. He'll go against Don the Snake Prudhomme.
Michael Brotherton driving Daryl Gwynn's car. Coming into this race, Gwynn was the only driver who had ever run in the 4s here, but Eddie Hill and Don Prudhomme settled that in qualifying. Prudhomme qualifying number 2 at a 4.98-second elapsed time. Don Prudhomme, his 26th year of NHRA Championship drag racing out of Granada Hills, California, failed to qualify for the Winter Nationals, but has been doing much better ever since. Michael Brotherton, his first year in this very fast Daryl Gwynn-owned car, wrenched by Ken Benny. This could be a very good drag race if they can hook up to this tricky old surface, Don.
Well, I think Michael Brotherton's at a definite disadvantage. The Snake is running very strong and very consistent today.
Oh boy, Prudhomme all over the racetrack. Here comes Brotherton. Not enough. Don Prudhomme at 496, his best of the event. 283 miles per hour. Brotherton losing at 5 seconds flat. Let's go to Don, back at the starting line with a happy crew chief.
Now we're talking 496. Good one.
Well, that was better. We've been fighting a few problems here and there, but with the condition of the track and the air and all that jazz, we feel like it'll run pretty good this weekend.
I think it was an excellent run. That track is cold in the middle.
It is cold and it's a little bit bald, but we got to be careful. It could smoke the tires any time.
Well, we almost saw the Snake smoke these tires as he gets a good launch against Brotherton. There you see him carrying those front wheels just a little bit down the drag strip, but as he gets to mid-track, it looked like he loosened up a little bit, Big Daddy.
Yeah, it looked like he might have got out of the groove just a little bit, Brock, but he straightened it up, and Brotherton's car did run good, but it wasn't good enough.
Boy, Brotherton was closing, and this racetrack would have been about 50 feet longer. Would have had a different man down at the far end as the winner. Well, so far in the first round, you've seen the world's fastest driver go out, Kenny Bernstein. Now what will happen to the world's quickest? The yellow car Eddie Hill calls the nuclear banana. While Bernstein was setting his speed record at Gainesville, Eddie Hill was kind of sneaking along, winning the race and setting the all-time elapsed time record. And that's what really counts in drag racing, elapsed time, not speed. So that old yellow car is the quickest ever at 4.80 seconds. Eddie's wife, Brucey, guiding back in the burnout tracks.
But his opponent, Doug Herbert, is definitely one to be reckoned with. He has run 480s on numerous occasions, and Eddie Hill knows he's got no slouch in the other lane.
Doug Herbert qualified number 8 at a 5:07, barely made the show. Eddie Hill, as we told you, was on top of the show and still has low elapsed time at this event at a 4:91. But that came in Friday's qualifying. Yesterday morning, Eddie Hill, on this qualifying run you're about to see, had some problems up against Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein loses traction and shuts it off. But watch Eddie Hill streak away from Bernstein and then become a Mount St. Helens as it crosses the finish line.
He had some gasket problems, and they didn't get to come back and make another run, so they're actually coming up here kind of cold turkey from that. So it could be a question of what happens to Eddie Hill on this first round.
Well, as Eddie commented when I talked to him at the top of the show, boy, did that engine sound good warming up in the pits. A lot of people were huddled around, not only to hear it, but try to get a little warmth off it, as it is still a very chilly morning here in North Carolina. Eddie Hill, look at all the raw fuel out of the headers. Eddie Hill's car does not leave as hard as it usually does, and he gets nipped. The biggest upset so far. Doug Herbert defeats Eddie Hill, a 5:04 to a 5:11. Woohoo! Don Garlitz is with his crew chief, Jim Brissett.
I would say from the number 8 qualifier, just barely making the field, to putting out the number 1 qualifier, Jim, is a major step forward in winning this race.
Actually, we were really afraid to be too aggressive, so we thought we'd only run like a 5:04, hoping that something would go wrong with his car, because you saw previous cars were smoking the tires, and it's, you know, it's still a little touchy, but maybe we can tune up now that we got down the track without smoking tires. Previous runs we were smoking tires, if you noticed, so we just try to play it safe.
Very smart move, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're set for the final 4 here at the Winston Invitational. First pair, that will be Joe Amato versus Doug Herbert. Joe has lane choice. The second pair, Don Prudhomme against Ed McCullough. Don Prudhomme with a low ET of that round at a 496 has lane choice. Let's go to Steve.
Well, the fastest yellow helmet in the world, Eddie, no help today. Darn.
Now we wound up second best out there. I don't know what we ran, but it didn't feel like it did its regular deal today.
No, it didn't. A 511.
No, it did something. Must have dropped a cylinder or something. Didn't do its regular deal. But we had a pretty good string going for a while, didn't we?
Absolutely, you did. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
What a sportsman. His attitude never changes, win or lose. What a neat guy. What a credit to the sport as we get ready to go with funny cars. That's Chuck Etchells moving into the staging lanes. He will face Paul Smith in round one. That's Joe Amato's pit as they get ready to face Doug Herbert in the Final Four here at the Winston Invitational, Rockingham, North Carolina. I'm Brock Yates along with Steve Evans and Big Daddy Don Garlitz. Right now, Steve, we've got a couple of good funny cars fired up on the line, ready to go.
And here is Freddie Neely. You talk about spirit. The car is called Forever Young, and Freddie lives that creed. He's got no spare parts. Everything he owns is on his race car. On the other end, here is the world's quickest funny car, Cruz Pedregon, the winner of the Houston race. The record setter at 5.10 seconds. He's got an 18-wheeler full of parts, and the way this car breaks up, it may not be enough to last the whole year. Freddie Neely qualified number 8, barely made the cut at a 5.56. Cruz Pedregon, number 1 qualifier, and nobody surprised, picked up an extra $10,000 with a 5.26. You heard him tell Brock at the top of the show that he thought they could run quicker, and we're going to pick round number 1 to do it. So the highly favored Cruz Pedregon up against Freddie Neely, but nobody tries harder than Neely. He'll try to get the better start. Not that will be a big advantage. Whoa! And an explosion. Freddie Neely's going to win this thing no matter what happens, Don Garland.
Well, he better keep it in his lane because remember the rule, if he gets out of his lane, he could lose, but he didn't.
Freddie Neely wins it at 7.75. But what happened back at the starting line is horrible news for Larry Minor Racing. It's a exploded engine, actually a hydraulic motor, no doubt. Cruz appears to be all right. There is oil all over the racetrack. Now, this is what was happening to this car earlier in the season. We saw it in round 2, the Winter Nationals in Pomona. We saw it again at Phoenix. They thought they had found all of their problems. Cruz now knows that gremlin is back.
Here is another look at that incident. There you see the body almost blown completely off the Pedregon car as Neely pedals it down the racetrack all over the track, smoking tires, but he does go on to the victory. Very despondent Pedregon, and of course Bernie Federley, his crew chief, everybody trying to figure out what causes this to happen repeatedly on that race car.
The concussion even blew the roof hatch open. I've never seen that before. Don Garlitz?
I see some of that shiny aluminum pieces, Cruz, laying out there on the drag strip, and that ain't a nice sight, is it?
Yeah, it sure isn't, Don. You know, we thought we had this problem solved, but obviously we haven't yet.
Well, you know, you got to take into consideration we're dealing with a terrible weather condition today. You know, tune-ups that you've had in the past mean nothing.
Right. Again, we thought the conditions were the same as it were when we ran the 526, but something's changed, and it's a disappointment, but, you know, there's always next time.
I knew when I got up this morning and I took ice off the car to come out to the drag strip, there was going to be a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's plenty cold. We figured we were ready for it, but we just have to look and evaluate.
Thank you, Cruz.
Thank you.
The $10,000 he won as his qualifying bonus, that won't even pay for the body repair, let alone by the engine pieces that were ruined on that car. Ooh, what a disaster for that crew. Stay with us.
Back at the Rock for more funny car action as we watch Chuck Etchells backing into position. Etchells going against Paul Smith in round 1 of funny car. And Steve, I'll tell you what, these guys haven't won a whole lot, but they are capable of some really hard runs.
Oh, and Paul Smith, he brought this funny car here just hoping to get it in the show, maybe 7th or 8th. Instead, he qualified one of his best runs ever at a 5:35 elapsed time. So he's got to be one happy guy at a point in Dean Sport. Has been around forever as driver and a crew chief. Now, the fella he is up against, Chuck Etchels, has won one national event, but I think there's more in his future. He now has Maynard Yates as his crew chief, some very good corporate backing from a half a dozen different sponsors. It is one first-class operation. They are pre-staged. Etchels, just based on experience and parts inventory, is going to be a bit of a favorite, but look at Smith. Etchels starts to smoke the tires, but gets enough grip to get to the finish line first at a 5:37. Paul Smith's very conservative 5:47. Had Etchels made any kind of a little bitty mistake, Paul Smith would have been there to take advantage. Let's go to Don Garlits with the winning crew chief, Maynard Yates.
Well, it slowed just a little bit from qualifying, but not much. I think really good for the conditions of the weather here this morning.
We were real concerned about the air. The barometer went way up this morning, and it's a guessing game because our last pass we smoked the tires and tried to go back to somewhere on that 5:35 qualifying run. So we're pleased. Hey, tell Doug Wolfgang we hope he gets better soon. Thank you.
Maynard, of course, referring to the great World of Outlaws sprint car driver Doug Wolfgang, who was injured this weekend in a crash at Kansas City. Everybody joins you in Maynard, of course, and hoping Doug recovers very quickly. All right, back to funny car action. That is young Whit Bazemore out of Georgia, moving in to go against Al Hoffman, doing his burnout there. And look at Hoffman, Big Daddy, got a little squirrely in the burnout.
Yes, that could affect his run. It's a good question as to what they'll do, whether to go back and try it again or what. Could be a definite advantage for Whit Bazemore because he made a perfect burnout. Let's go to the far end.
Well, a good solid 5:37 for Chuck Etchels, but Chuck mumbled with his helmet on. You heard something right at the finish line?
Yeah, I heard a fell vibration, and in the shutdown area I could hear a lot of metal moving around, so I don't know what it is.
Probably rear end.
Well, I hope that's all it is. I hope it's, sometimes it can be in the clutch, but normally if the clutch starts coming out, your legs start getting warm, so I don't think that's it.
We'll see you in the pits and check it out.
Thanks, Steve.
So it could get interesting for Chuck Etchels if, in fact, he's got some expensive noises down there. As Whit Bazemore moves into position, he will go against Al Hoffman. Al Hoffman with lane choice. There is Al Hoffman's wife, Helen, who always does a lot of the wrenching on the car and handles the tactics on the starting line. Steve?
Absolutely. Al Hoffman, nobody battles harder. He won this race a year ago and went on to win 2 national events. Whit Bazemore started in the sport as a starting line photographer for various newspapers and magazines, and now here he are, funny car star, or trying to be one. Bazemore in the near lane, Hoffman over on the far side. Gary Evans, the crew chief for Whit Bazemore, looking on intently, hoping more than anything else that they don't hurt anything. They'd rather almost lose the race than burn up a body or explode an engine when you run on that kind of a budget. It's a good race. Bazemore was in it until he smoked the tires in the middle of the racetrack. Helen Hoffman says, all right, we'll take a 5:34 at 271 miles per hour. Good thing Hoffman had some top-end muscle because Bazemore was off the mark first by quite a ways. Let's go to Don Whit, the winning crew chief.
Nice pass, Tom.
Yeah, that was okay. That's about what we expected to run. Actually, we were a little nervous up there because he got in trouble on his burnout and really didn't get the tires hot, but it was all right. We'll be fine.
Well, as Tom said, and as we saw, Hoffman had a weird burnout, Big Daddy.
And as we watch it here in slow motion, we will see what probably caused Hoffman to have such a poor starting line reaction. This is one of the weirdest burnouts I have ever seen. Watch it smoke the left tire, and the right tire continues to get a grip. That's almost impossible with these tube axles, but it did it. You saw it with your own eyes. Now, Hoffman had to have that on his mind when he went to the starting line.
Well, Al, a rather interesting burnout.
I don't know what happened. The car never done that before. It jumped up and went sideways and just backed up and went. It felt like it ran pretty good, though.
Yeah, I did 5:34.
Yeah, as we figured, probably around low 30 in the first round. Anyhow, I'd like to thank Whiston for putting this race on, and I'd sure like to win it again.
I know you would. Let's pan down a little bit to the left side of the car here, and there's a big ouch and some tape hanging off. What happened?
Well, when we threw the body off it out in Pomona, when it came down, it was up there about 100 feet in the air, and it weakened a lot of stuff and blew some holes in it, but it's all repaired from the inside, and we've got a brand new car ready to run in Atlanta.
Okay, see you next round.
Thanks.
Okay, next pair coming to the line, a couple of major players in funny car competition. That is John Force, Austin Coyle as crew chief, guiding him back. He'll go against Mark Oswald. And I'll tell you what, that's the lane that Hoffman had troubles in and Pedregon blew up in, Big Daddy. I'll guarantee you Coyle isn't going to back him into where that oil possibly lies.
Well, I'm sure that the racing surface of the lane is good, as was witnessed by the fact that once Hoffman got off, he went a 5:34, which is a very good run for this morning.
There is John Force, and I wouldn't bet against him. With his driving talent on slick racetrack, Austin Coyle has been running on this racetrack since it was built in the early 1970s. He's got to loom as a huge favorite. Forget that he's the two-time Winston Funny Car Championship. It's all that experience. Mark Oswald from King, North Carolina, they are having a rugged season. Went out first round in the first 3 races of the year, got to the second round in the 4th race, and that's their record. It's not a real good one. They're not proud of it. Here they are against John Force. Blows the tires right off it instantly up into smoke, and Mark Oswald, whoa, his crew chief Bill Schultz has stepped up a 5:32 at 276 miles per hour. Let's go to Don, however, with a crew chief that won't be quite as happy as Bill Schultz.
Well, the weather bit another one.
Ain't that the truth? The weather changing as much as it has, it's really hard to predict how much power it's going to have. We have a system for determining how much fuel it'll stand without burning the motor up, but don't have a close guess on how much power it's going to make. Power was obviously up there pretty good, and the track wasn't there to match it.
You bet.
So let's take another look at the problems that John Force faced on the starting line, Big Daddy.
Well, we see Oswald taking a definite starting line advantage. He was ready for John Force, but as we heard Austin Coyle say, there was just a little bit too much horsepower, and Force goes up in smoke.
So we have the pairings for the Final Four. Hoffman faces Mark Oswald, Oswald with lane choice. The other half, Chuck Etchells and Freddie Neely. Chuck Etchells with the lane choice in that pair. And now let's go to the man who just put John Force on the trailer.
Mark Oswald whip. Low elapsed time of the round at a 5:32, sneaking up on it.
Yeah, we kind of had to, Steve. We were all over both sides of it during qualifying. We were weak the first couple runs, and then we came out last night right before the rain, and we're a little too strong, so we just came out conservative, and we figured if we got down the racetrack, he'd have a tough time beating us.
Leave it alone now?
We can't ever leave anything alone.
Okay, here's some guys that aren't leaving things alone. That is Chuck Etchells' crew. Remember, Chuck told us about the noises he heard. It looks like they found him. They're in the clutch. They're hard at work on that car. We'll be back at Rockingham.
A record crowd here at the Winston Invitational of 52,000 people for the weekend, but one rig is going to beat the traffic, and that's the one of Michael Brotherton, the Darrell Gwynn team, as they were defeated in round number 1 by Don the Snake Prudhomme. And here we see Prudhomme's crew working on that engine, getting ready to face off with Ed McCullough in the Final Four. That'll be coming up in just a bit. Right now, let's go to Don Garlits, who is in the Chuck Etchells pit, to check in on that story.
Chuck Etchells won his first round of competition here, and he ran a pretty good time, a 5:37. But the price was heavy. An arm came off of the clutch. We can see it right here. One of these fingers broke off. There it is. It got loose in the can. It has done a lot of damage. This team is going to have to do a lot of work to get ready to come back for the semifinals.
Well, the explosion-proof bell housing that covers that clutch kept all the pieces inside where they belong. Let's go to Brock Yates with John Force.
Well, it's always a shock when a champ goes up in smoke, John, but I guess there's no way out of it every once in a while, huh?
Well, it really is, and we weren't running for points here. We were running for the money. Big purse here at this race. And we trying to run a number last night to beat Cruz. We put another motor in it and didn't get the chance to run it. It rained, as you know. And we come out here today, and it was kind of guesswork. So Austin Coyle, myself, we shot our best shot, and you can't back her down when you're racing guys like Oswald and Schultz. I mean, you got to go for it, and we thought she'd run a 25. The air tuned us up, and we're out of it.
Well, I picked you, John, if that's worth anything. All right, Pro Stock round number 2. You're looking at that dominating Dodge, now driven by Scott Jeffrey but it may not dominate here. With its very short wheelbase, it likes one of the super tracks. And this is a good racetrack, but not a Houston like they ran on a month ago or Gainesville 2 weeks ago. And Brock Yates, that's an interesting story with Don Beverly.
It sure is. That is the second car of the Warren Johnson stable. That's Warren's son, Kurt, getting ready. Don Beverly's in the automobile, and last year, Scott Jeffrey drove this Oldsmobile Cutlass.
It has tremendous horsepower. Made it to the final round at the Phoenix race earlier this year. Don Beverly out of Chester, Virginia. Scott Jeffrey on Fairfield, Illinois, actually living in Huntington Beach, California, the car based in Fairfield, Illinois. And this is Jeffrey on's opportunity to be a superstar in the sport of Pro Stock. There is no better ride for a hired driver than this one.
Well, he's had some problems getting used to this automobile in the early stages of this season, but right now he's coming out pretty well, Big Daddy.
Yes, he is, but he's faced with a formidable opponent, and of course this Dodge does not like this type of racetrack. It wants it to be real good all the way down. Now we've got a good starting line, but down course it could get loose.
Jeffrey indeed gets loose. He's such a fine driver you can hardly tell. And it is Don Beverly at 726, 191 miles an hour. Jeffrey off a full, well, almost a tenth, the 731 at 189 miles per hour. So Beverly will go to the Final Four with the Warren Johnson owned, still looking for a sponsor, Oldsmobile.
Well, here's a guy that's got plenty of sponsorship and a couple of Winston Invitational trophies on his shelf already. Jerry Eckman, Big Daddy, has not only won this event twice, but he's won 2 major NHR events already this season.
And this should be one fine race. Both of these cars come into this round with a 7:21 elapsed time, almost dead even. This race will be decided by who leaves the starting line first.
And backing into position is his opponent, that is Bruce Allen, in the rare Morrison Lumina. But first, let's go to Steve.
Don Beverly, a 726, put away that always feared Dodge.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was a bad run on our part. The car shook, and I don't know what Scott ran. I never really saw him, but, I was really worried about Scott. The car really runs good, and I think Scott's done a good job in the car.
This is a tough track for a Pro Stock car.
Well, I'll tell you what, the start line is really good, Steve, and then it goes away, and then you get loose. We've had a terrible time figuring it out this weekend.
Great job, then.
Thank you a lot.
All right, Jerry Eckman backing into position. Eckman, as we said earlier, has had a great season so far with that Bill Orndorff automobile out of Newark, Ohio. He qualified number 1 and beat Ray Franks in round 1. Bruce Allen beat Jim Yates in an upset in round number 1. He, of course, out of Arlington, Texas.
And Bruce qualified in the number 9 position with a 724, so he's giving up about 7/100ths of a second as far as their qualifying numbers are concerned. Already moving in is Allen, the top light lit. Eckman will follow suit. Then they bring the RPMs up to about 8,000, 2,350-pound cars, 500 cubic inch engines. Can't be any bigger than that. 2 great big carburetors the size of 55-gallon drums. Gasoline in the tank. Eckman finally stages, and away they go. It's Eckman away first. Oh, Bruce Allen, Brock, all over the racetrack.
All over the racetrack at that trouble spot mid-track. And Jerry Eckman goes on to win it at a 7:25, 191 miles an hour.
So we saw exactly what Don Beverly was talking about in that interview. It's good off the starting line, then it goes away, and then it becomes, well, the driver has got to handle that automobile. That's why they put a steering wheel in the end of that shaft. Here's a man that can do it. Larry Morgan up against Bob Glidden in the Pro Ford, the only Ford in Pro Stock racing. And Glidden is still looking to impress even himself this year. The car's got steady performance with no more of that domination he enjoyed for almost 10 years.
Oh, absolutely. The winningest race driver in the history of NHRA Championship drag racing, but the last season or so, big problems, and he's still searching for the handle on that Ford Probe. However, he qualified 4th at a 7:22, which puts him in pretty good position here. Larry Morgan, well, he's qualified at number 5 at the same ET, so this ought to be a super race, Don Garlitz.
Again, it'll probably be decided right at the starting line, but Glidden is one of the best on starting line reactions, but Morgan is no slouch either, so the fans are getting ready to watch a really good Pro Stock race.
And down here in this part of the country, North Carolina, they indeed love these Pro Stock cars. They have every bit as many fans as the Nitro Burners. As Big said, it's a Ford Probe Glidden. Over on the right side of your screen, left side of your screen, and it's Bob Glidden away first. Morgan better have a ton of power. He's coming on. Cannot catch the board. Rusty Glidden says, finally, we're going to the Final Four. Glidden at 7:23, 192 miles an hour. A great job of race car driving, not just tuning.
As we watch this replay, we see that start advantage that Glidden gets when he leaves the line. Very unusual to beat Morgan that bad out of the gate. Glidden's car gives up a little ET in the middle of the course. That slick spot, it must have slipped just a little bit. Morgan gains somewhat on him, but not enough. Glidden's car again comes on with 192 and takes the win.
Well, Bob Glidden razor sharp up the starting line today. A hole shot. Your 23 beat his 22.
We're running so slow, that'd be about the only way we could win a race right now.
You've got the quickest elapsed time that survived so far this round, though.
Well, we've got another fast car yet to run. We're glad to be here.
Bob referring to that yellow Pontiac Trans Am at Jerry Ekman's. That's who he'll face in the Final Four.
But Glidden will have lane choice over him.
Should be interesting. The fourth member of the Final Four will come out of one of these two automobiles. That is Vince Curry. His Oldsmobile qualified sixth. He put away the local favorite Ricky Smith earlier in the day out of Mount Clemens, Michigan. He can run very strong, but probably not as strong as this man, Warren Johnson, out of Duluth, Georgia, the man who dominated the Gator Nationals in his Oldsmobile. He ran a 7:19 in the first round, and he is stout, Big Daddy.
Now he's up against Vince Curry. Now Vince Curry ran a 7:22 earlier, so you know you can parlay that to a 7:19 pretty easy. So I'd say it's a pretty even race any way you cut it.
Johnson and Curry. Curry was very late off the starting line. Extremely tardy. Warren Johnson just pounds him with a 7:17. Low elapsed time of the round. 192.96 miles an hour for WJ, who truly asserted himself, and you can bet Jerry Ekman was watching that one. But in the Final Four, it will be Warren Johnson versus his own teammate, Don Beverly. When Beverly rented this car, the deal was, let the best man win, no games. In the second pair in the Final Four, Ford versus Pontiac, Bob Glidden will be up against Jerry Ekman. That should be one whale of a race. Meanwhile, back in the funny car pit area, it appears that Chuck Etchels and his fine crew, a lot of talent there, are starting to get a handle on not only getting the engine prepared, but also that clutch damage that Don Garlits talked about. They'll make it into the lane for the Final Four. We're back in Rockingham, and we'll have top fuel action for you in just a moment. But a quick word about NHRA Now, presented by Castrol GTX. It's a 24-hour drag racing information line with the latest info on your favorite drivers and events. Call 1-900-468-NHRA. You'll be charged on your phone bill. There's the Mark Oswald pit area. In a bit, they'll face off with the defending Winston Invitational champion, Al Hoffman. And that could be the best funny car race of the day. All the ingredients are there for a classic confrontation. There is Jerry Amato. Very important what she's doing here, Don Garlits, in the Final Four.
It certainly is. You've got to be backed up right in your tracks. We've seen an awful lot of cars spin the tires at the starting line. If you're not sitting in those tracks that the slicks have put down in the burnout, you could be in big trouble.
The right hand on the brake. He'll use that to try to restrain that horsepower as he stages against this man, 24-year-old Doug Herbert.
You know, these two drivers, Steve, have faced each other in almost every race. The confrontation is becoming unbelievable.
That's right, and Herbert has run a 488. He did that at Pomona the first race of the year, so Amato knows you can never take that kid lightly, especially with Jim Brissett, who's the wrench on that car, and Brissett can rotate the earth with horsepower when he wants to. Tim Richards, the crew chief for Joe Amato, a little more, conservative usually than Brissett. Richards always takes everything into account, the weather and the track and the opponent, and that's why they've won 4 Winston championships, more than any other driver. You see the little front wheels and the beams, they're ready.
Look how he's lined up in his tracks, just perfect, Steve.
And great observation, Don, and look how straight he goes in them. As Herbert has a little too much power in the middle, Tim Richards said, yep, that's the one I wanted. A 498 for Joe Amato at 285 miles per hour. That is Joe's first ever 4 here on this Rockingham track.
Gaining just a little every run, Tim.
Yeah, that's what we're working on. This is a real tough situation. This track is not what we're used to, but the air is killer, and it's really a tough deal.
Yeah, you can't just step on it like you'd like.
No, there's no way you can give it all the power you know you have there. It just can't be done. Thanks.
So Tim Richards adjusts that clutch so that Amato wins the drag race, a close one, but also moves into the fours. One of the first four second passes today, Big Daddy.
And the amount of clutch that's coming out of the back of Amato's car emphasizes how heavily the crew is relying upon a slipping clutch to not allow the tires to slip. On top of that, Amato drives extremely straight and therefore gives him the win over Herbert easily.
Have not seen Joe Amato this pumped up all weekend long. Back in the fours where you belong at a 98 in a great drag race with Herbert.
He was right there, Steve, all along. You know, I knew it was going to be tight because both cars ran real close first round, but we were just hoping we get down the track. Tim made me a little nervous when he picked the right lane, but the general usually knows.
Absolutely, and you were right on time off the starting line.
Well, you know, he's always real. These young guys are pushing us old veterans, so we got to really sharpen up and get on the stick. That's all I kept working on all weekend, trying to be on the stick. We won the last 2 years, and this will be a hat trick if we can pull it off, but there's a lot of pressure. I'd like to thank Winston for putting on this race. It's a heck of a deal.
You bet it is. He's pulled off a hat trick before. Denver comes to mind.
All right, the last two top fuel dragsters heading to the line. One of these guys will go into the finals against Joe Amato. That is Ed McCullough. He's having a pretty good day after some tough going earlier in the season. Going against them will be Don the Snake Prudhomme, who has had a terrific day here so far, Big Daddy.
Yes, he has. Ed McCullough got by that first round for the first time, but it was very unimpressive with a 5:46. Lee Beard has got some catching up to do if he's going to match tires with the Snake.
Okay, only the fifth run on McCullough's new car. Let's see if Beard has got it together. If Medlin has another 4-second run in store for the Snake. There is Ed McCullough, the McDonald's top fuel dragster. The fans on their feet, every single one of them. McCullough does not want to stage first. Prudhomme finally breaks. McCullough moves in. Whoa! It is Don Prudhomme. The scoreboard shows yet another four. A 496 at 280 miles an hour to a losing close 502. Big Daddy, are you there?
Another 496. That's like a bracket car.
Well, we feel very fortunate. We tried to repeat and wanted to run another 496 if the traction would hold it. And looks like we might have guessed that one pretty good.
Going to make a great final, isn't it?
We're hoping for it. We're real excited about it. Thanks.
So the Snake will face Joe Amato in the finals here based on this terrific pass. There is Prudhomme in the near lane. Good launch by both drivers. Almost identical reaction time. But it is Prudhomme in a almost letter-perfect drag race, Don Garlett.
Well, Lee Beard and company have to be real happy with McCullough's performance. He got a nice starting line advantage, and the car ran wheel to wheel with the Snake. So, all in all, first weekend out, it was a very good show.
So there are your top fuel finalists. Prudhomme and Amato, almost identical ETs, a 96 to a 98. It will be Prudhomme with the lane choice.
Well, Don Prudhomme, who was ahead most of the way, may not even know how good a drag race that was. He was right there.
You bet he was right there. Saw him all the way. Are you kidding?
A 496 gives you lane choice over Joe Amato.
Well, we'll need it. You know, Joe's real tough, and I think this Skull Bandit car is going to step up next round.
Lane choice and advantage?
Well, I think so. Just a teens, not much. You know, it's more of the setting of the car, and we'll see what the weather conditions do between now and the final.
Amato has won this race the last 2 years.
Well, that's his last 2 years.
I love the Snake.
So, Don the Snake Prudhomme preparing to celebrate his 51st birthday tomorrow, hopefully with a victory here in the Winston Invitational. We got Funny Car coming up. Stick with us. back at Rockingham, North Carolina, where we're looking at the interior of Jerry Ekman's Pro Stock Pontiac. No secrets there, but up front, well, the man works under a blanket on the front of that big 500 cubic inch engine. Nobody knows what he's working on under that.
Looks like he's changing film or something. Needs all the darkness. Let me take just a moment to invite you to become a member of a very special organization, the National Hot Rod Association. For $48 a year, you get 48 issues of National Dragster, a patch, a pin, a rule book, and a lot more. And if you order by calling the number on your screen, you'll also get a free copy of Diamond Piece Home Video Drag Racing 1990. So, make that call. It's a plenty good deal. Here we go. The body going down on the Freddie Neely car. He is up against Chuck Etchels, and both of these guys had problems, Big Daddy, in the previous round.
And especially Chuck Etchels. His clutch problems were very serious, and I'm sure he is hoping that that crew got that clutch put together just right, the way it was previously, because this track, the whole deal is in the clutch department. So Maynard Yates had his hands full getting Etchels ready for this round.
All right, no pun intended, but Freddie Neely has not got a grip on this racetrack all weekend. He has smoked the tires every single time he has gone down either of the lanes. He's got to eliminate that to have any chance against Etchels. Ooh, Etchels very late. Neely does smoke the tires, gets it sideways, shuts it up. Chuck Etchels, I thought he was never going to leave the starting line, but when he does, it's a nice 540, but the speed is very slow, 261 miles an hour. There are some problems with that car. Etchels trying to get it stopped. Let's go down to Don Garlits.
That 540, not too bad considering all the work was done in that clutch.
Yeah, we were trying to make some improvements there to cut down some of the wear, and we might have arrested that. We might not have. I think we might have nicked the motor a little bit this time. Mile an hour fell off pretty bad. Thank you.
Let's take another look at this race, which involves some notably slow reaction times on the part of both drivers. As you can see, Neely in the near lane leaves first, but goes up in smoke almost instantaneously. Etchels moves on to the victory, but apparently has hurt his motor. Steve is with him at the far end.
Well, some strange things were going on with this race car, and here's the man that knows. Chuck, what happened?
First of all, when I staged, my boot got stuck on the clutch pedal.
That accounts for your slow reaction time.
Yeah. And I got that thing out of the way, and it was starting to layer over a little bit up near the end, but I knew I had the other problem. I didn't know where Freddie was. And
what other problem?
Well, it definitely torched the head gasket and caught fire. I saw the flash up by the firewall, so I mean, it has to be that.
You got plenty of parts?
Yes, we do. Thanks to Nobody Beats the Wiz.
Okay, so we will see Etchels go into the finals. Right now, we're back in the pits with Warren Johnson. He is getting that Oldsmobile ready to go against his teammate, Don Beverly.
And part of that preparation is bolting on a brand new pair of those huge Goodyear slicks to go up against his own teammate. I'll say it. May the best man win. All right, here's the last half of the second round. And this, I said it before, I will say it again, could be the best funny car race of the day. Mark Oswald up against Al Hoffman, John.
You're absolutely right, Steve. These cars come into this round, Oswald with a 5.32 and Hoffman with a 5.34. Both of the crew chiefs, Bill Schultz for Oswald and Tom Anderson for Hoffman, are some of the best in the business. We're going to see a good car race here.
Absolutely. No advantage to either team. Not in financing, not in driver, not in crew chief. This is just a balance is here. Oh, and look at him go. Oh, I told you it'd be a good one. I just didn't know how good. Almost identical elapsed times, but Oswald is the winner. Both of them clocked 5.40, the same as Chuck Etchels as he gained the final round. Let's go to Don.
Well, I don't know what the thousandths are, but somebody's got low ET on the round.
Well, that was real fine because our driver saved us again. You got a good quality driver and you put him in a good car and you can't lose.
Should be a real great final.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe we can step it up a little bit. We saw a little tire smoke the first round, and this time we didn't see any, so we'll go back and see what the tapes have to say. Thank you.
Well, let's take another look at what Bill Schultz is referring to, a really super drag race between Mark Oswald near lane, Al Hoffman far lane. A good pole shot on the part of Mark Oswald, and that will spell the difference in a heads-up drag race that is decided by about 5/100ths of a second. Just about as close as they get in funny car competition. There you see Oswald crossing the line to head into the finals against Chuck Etchels.
Anytime both drivers run the same elapsed time, it's a worthwhile drag race, Mark.
Yeah, Al's a good guy. You know, maybe I just got a little lucky and got out on him. I'm just real happy to be here for Winston. They've done so much for drag racing, and I'm really glad to be a part of it.
Both of you ran 540. Your opponent in the final, Chuck Etchels, ran 540. They're still calculating lane choice, but it's going to be a beauty.
Yeah, it is. It'll be a good race any way you look at it.
Okay, Mark Oswald, final round bound.
Okay, the automobile, pretty good shape. No apparent problems on that one. Etchel, he's got some troubles with his, but he does have lane choice at 2 1,000ths of a second difference between these two cars. Almost heads-up racing coming up. Meanwhile, that is the Skull Bandit Top Fuel dragster Don Prudhomme. He will go against Joe Amato in the Top Fuel final.
Well, if you're a Pro Stock fan, turn up the volume and buckle up because we have got the Final Four here at the Winston Invitational. I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates and Big Daddy Don Garlitz. And Brock, first, who do you like between Jerry Ekman and Bob Glidden?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think that Ekman's got to play the favorite's role here based on the way they've been running all season long. 2 major event victories already, and Glidden's struggling, but he's coming on better now. He seems to maybe start to find a handle on that Pro.
Big Daddy?
Well, I tell you what, I like Glidden because he's hungry, and he comes into this round with lane choice. That means he's right there in the performance. Ekman can step up, but I look for Glidden to really give us something to see here. Perhaps he's going to win this round.
And he had lane choice going in, and Ekman is not crazy about that far lane. That's the yellow Pinto Pontiac you see right there. He'd prefer to be on the near side where Glidden is.
Well, that's the lane that's giving everybody problems. No question about that.
All right, they're away. It's a good start. Glidden's right there. Glidden could pull this off. No! By a whisker. It's the Bill Orndorff owned. You just saw him. Jerry Ekman driven Pontiac 725 to a 729. But I think Glidden had something off the starting line that made it even closer, Don.
Let's watch that start. Look at Glidden take that whole shot starting line advantage away from Jerry Ekman, who is excellent on the starting line. It just shows that Glidden really wanted to win. But the problem was in the middle of the racetrack. Glidden's car must have lost a little bit of traction, gave Ekman the advantage, and just by ever so much of a whisker, Ekman wins the race.
Boy, I love it when these drivers come rolling into here yelling, "Who won? Did I win? Yes, you won."
Oh, man, that's drag racing. I saw Bob all the way, and I know he saw me, and I don't think he knew who won.
725, and it was a handful.
It certainly was. It certainly was a handful. That wasn't one of my best runs, but we got the win, and we're in the final.
See you then.
Okay, and now we're going to find out who he will face. And it's an all-Oldsmobile, all-Warren Johnson confrontation coming up. That's the boss, Warren Johnson right there. That's his driver, Don Beverly, in the other white Oldsmobile Cutlass, unsponsored automobile at this point. So we'll see whether or not the employee is at work and beat up on the boss.
Well, I don't know if you can call him an employee because it is Beverly paying Johnson to drive that car, and you can bet that he's not going to lay down not a whisker, Don Garlitz, I don't think.
Well, as we look at the performance of the previous round, it looks like Johnson is a standout. 717 to Beverly 726, but you never know in drag racing.
Let's remember there's no Winston points at stake, just money. Beverly skating around. Whoa! The Johnson team puts on one of the best races of the day. How about a 722 for Warren, winning it to a 724? And the reaction times, as we'll see in a replay in here in just a second, were absolutely identical.
They don't get much closer than that. A .456 to a .455. I mean, that to me is dead on. The difference was just in the middle of the track. The 724 for Beverly to the 722 for Johnson. But I'll tell you what, if Johnson had made one little slip, Beverly would have gotten by him, and it would have been a different story.
So the renter, as it were, loses to the landlord, who will move into the finals against Jerry Ekman. Warren Johnson and the Oldsmobile, Jerry Ekman and the Pontiac. Johnson has lane choice, but only by a few fractions of a second.
Well, after the semis, when Warren Johnson said, "Let the best man win," you weren't kidding. What a drag race, 22 to a 24.
It was a close race. Don was right there. I knew he would be because I own all that equipment.
But you had to beat him man on man.
That's exactly what it boiled down to. And Don's out here having fun, and I'm out here trying to make a living, and we're both working hard at it.
Well, you're going to work hard in the final.
Well, Don and I were here for one purpose, put our Oldsmobile in the final, and now we got one more step.
You seem to have the better handling race car. Ekman's is a real handful.
This track is tricky. Ekman's got an excellent handling race car on most tracks. This track is just a little tricky. All the field cars, all of us, we've all got problems, and whoever figures it out, hopefully will win.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
So we've got the players set in all the pro categories. We'll see who the winners are right after this. That's Joe Amato in the cockpit of his Top Fuel dragster as they fire up that motor in the pits, getting ready for his final run against Don Prudhomme coming up later. But right now, let's go to Steve for a recap of some of the other competitive categories here at Rockingham.
And Brock, actually, there is a fourth pro category. It's called Pro Stock Bike. And this was the final earlier today. John McMorrow versus John Myers. You were on board John Myers thanks to a third eye strapped to the side of his helmet, our helmet cam. And this is what it's like to ride a Suzuki Katana 171 miles an hour in 7.76 seconds. The Pro Stock Bike champion at the Winston Invitational, John Myers. Now, as far as the sportsman categories are concerned, a tip of our hat to Wayne Johnson, who won the Top Alcohol Dragster title. He's the Winston champion currently. Top Alcohol Funny Car, another current Winston champion. Pat Austin was in victory lane. Competition went to Steve Johns, always competitive. Superstock, one of the real veterans of the class, Bobby Warren. In Stock Eliminator, it was Bob Broadbent who beat the pack. In Supercomp, a ton of cars, Rob Slavinsky ended up on top of the pack. And in Supergas, Joe Mesquita was the champ. Super Street, Les Figueroa. We congratulate them all. It's never easy in Winston NHRA Championship drag racing on this level. Talk about not easy. Warren Johnson is up against Jerry Ekman, the Pro Stock final. A Pontiac versus an Oldsmobile. There you see Jerry Ekman, the points leader. That's not a factor here. Earlier, I talked to both. Jerry, what is the most important thing you have to do to this car to beat Warren Johnson?
The most important thing, try to make it go faster. He's got a little slight advantage on us going into the final, kind of like last week, and hopefully we can tune this thing back up and be ready for him. He's running well, and it's going to be a good final.
Warren Johnson preparing the clutch. That could be the secret to beat Ekman.
Well, this track is mighty tricky, so it's probably going to be the secret. The driver reacting on time and the clutch doing what it's supposed to.
So much. We consider the engine always as the key, but it becomes more and more in all the pro categories the clutch is the secret element to victory here. That, and as Warren Johnson says, reaction time, which is always critical in pro stock competition.
Here we go. This is it for $16,000. Ekman in the 4 lane, Johnson in the near lane. Johnson has troubles in high gear and fades. Jerry Ekman has won it for the third time. A 723 to a 740. Probably something in the transmission or the clutch. He just didn't have that big charge on the big end. 191 miles an hour for Ekman.
As we watch the replay, we see Johnson take a very decided starting line advantage and start to move away. It looks like he was going to pull out another one of those patented teens with that Pro Stocker. Ekman was trailing a little bit, but then something went wrong, and Ekman's car moved ahead. He didn't run an exceptionally good time, 7:23, just normal, but Johnson was way behind, and Ekman's the champ.
Jerry Ekman, congratulations. You've now won 3 of these Winston Invitationals.
Great, Steve. Yeah, I think the odds makers wrote us off on this deal, but you can't fault this Pennzoil Pontiac and its crew. That's what we're made out of. We come here to win, and we did, and we're thrilled to death.
Take it to the bank.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Brock?
Okay, Steve, a great show on the part of this team all year long. All right, let's go down to the starting line for the funny car final. Maynard Yates makes one final check on Chuck Edgell's engine, which they replaced prior to this pass.
Absolutely. A brand new motor went into this car. You remember they torched a head gasket. Mark Oswald, well, things were pretty normal when I stopped by their pits between rounds. In fact, I talked to both drivers before they saddled up. Mark, would you bet on yourself in this final round?
Yeah, I'd definitely bet on myself. We came here to win. This team's had a real dry spell the first part of the year, and everybody here needs it.
Chuck Edgels, you're in the finals, but it has not been an easy day.
No, it's really been tough, Steve. You know, first round we hurt a clutch. Fix that. Maynard wasn't really happy with the spare he put in, and that's what he was worried about on this run. This run here, like I said earlier, my foot got stuck on a clutch pedal. I couldn't get it off, so I couldn't leave the starting line. I finally got that off and figured Neely had to be at half track by then. That's how long it seemed like I was there. And then we get down around 900 or 1,000 feet. It caught fire, torched the cylinder head. So it's a mess.
Well, anytime you torch a head, that is a mess, and that gives the team an awful lot of work to do. But obviously they got it fixed. Here it is running on the starting line, and Edgels is ready for the final and funny car.
When you get sidetracked having to change a motor, you wonder how much attention can be paid to all of the usual things, like the clutch and the fuel systems, and what makes these cars go very, very quick. We're about to find out. Edgels will be over in the far lane. Near lane is Oswald. Look at Oswald go. Edgels is not in this one. The champion on the day is Mark Oswald at a 5:33, 279 miles an hour. Edgels fades to a 5:50. So Oswald wins it here. Back on the starting line, Don Garland.
Well, 5:33, you saved it. You ran very consistent all day long. You never smoked a tire. Congratulations, Bill.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to get that type of congratulations because we've been having trouble smoking the tires. But when you get a driver that leaves like that and some team owners that back you like we have, we can't lose.
So as Mark Oswald unhooks and gets his helmet off, let's go down and take another look at a drag race that went to him in convincing style. Not only does he outrun Edgels, but he beats him off the line. Pretty solid reaction time on the part of Mark Oswald in the near lane. Edgels never really in it really from the start, and then falls off pretty badly mid-track as Mark Oswald right here just breaks free of Edgels and moves into victory lane with a convincing run. Let's go to Steve now with the champion.
All right, the winner is out of the car, unstrapping his helmet. Mark Oswald, this team can really use the $25,000. They run on a very small budget compared to some of the other machines that have heavy corporate backing. Of course, they, like everyone else, is looking for that. Great job.
Thank you, Steve. I'm really happy. I'm really happy, especially for Winston. The race turnout here, you know, is really fantastic, and Winston's been dedicated to racing like we all have here, so I'm really happy to win this race. And the Petosa brothers, they've been a lifesaver to this race team.
Thanks for a great show.
Thank you.
Brock Yates?
Okay, Steve, we've got one race left here at the Winston Invitational. It will involve that man, Don Prudhomme. He is going against Joe Amato, who seeks victory number 3 here at Rockingham.
You're on board with Joe Amato, the winningest top fuel driver ever in NHRA competition. He's in the final round of the NHRA Winston Invitation. He has 4 titles to his credit. No man has ever done that. He is up against Don the Snake Prudhomme in the opposite lane. Prudhomme has 4 funny car titles to his credit. Jerry Amato, again, very competently backing her husband up in the tracks in which he burned out. As Don Garland explained earlier, that is so important. And there is the Snake. He and Amato haven't raced side by side that much in the 2 years that Don Prudhomme has been back into this category. The Snake, well, you can see blood in his eye the last time we talked. In fact, just moments ago, I chatted with both drivers to see how they felt.
Tim Richards to look the tape over, and the weather's going to change. I'm sure the track's going to get a little bit faster. You have to guard against smoking the tires in a situation like this. You don't want to beat yourself. We're going to go up there and just try and be steady. Going to put a lot of pressure on the driver because the Snake's leaving good. We're trying to just do our job. It's just 2 wily old veterans going at it for Winston's 25,000 plus.
What's the plan?
Well, I don't know. You know, we just got to look at it and stuff, and John will probably end up making that decision. Just got to step on a little bit, you know, because the model's quick.
Well, Steve, after watching those 2 interviews, I would say both drivers are wired for this one. They know it's a tight race. A 498 to a 496, that's anybody's race.
Oh, yeah, and you got to spend a lot of time with each other in the pit. Sometimes you're pitted side by side. You need bragging rights if you're a Snake or an Amato. They've got that kind of racer's pride. And away goes Amato. Where is Prudhomme? There is Prudhomme right alongside. It is Don Prudhomme in the race of the entire weekend. The Snake at 4.99 to Amato's quicker 4.98 second elapsed time, and they are celebrating big time on the starting line. Don Garlits is down there.
Well, it looks to me like the old Snake pulled it out right on the starting line. You guys kept it consistent, but if he'd have left the same, you'd have lost.
Yeah, 30 years of this sport and 25 years of driving showed up there on the starting line. His starting line margin gave us the win. We owe it to him.
Well, he's one of the greatest there is. Brock?
Absolutely big. His starting line reaction was absolutely perfect. I'm not sure whether he knew who went up. At this point, though, it appears that it was that launch on the part of the Snake that pulled it out. Great reaction time on his part there. A little smoke on the part of Amato over there as he falls off just a little bit, but it is otherwise impossible to call unless it was for the electronic timers. There's the margin of victory. All right, here is the race from Joe Amato's perspective. He drives perfectly, but loses to Prudhomme in one of the closest races of the season.
And I have to tell you, Brock, he wasn't sure he had won it. Joe Amato pointed over and said, "You won, Snake."
Well, Amato had to tell me because I didn't know. I know it was one hell of a close race.
Both of you in the boards side by side to the finish line.
Well, when you race a guy like Joe, he's just terrific, and their whole team, and our team, John Medlin, Skull Bandit, the crew, everybody, done a great job here.
All right, let's go back up to Brock Yates.
And Steve, what a great way to cap a day of racing at Rockingham. Don Prudhomme, Oswald, and Ekwin, the winners in the pro categories. For Big Daddy Don Garlits and Steve Evans, I'm Brock Yates. Thanks for joining us at the Winston Invitational.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from Diamond P.
They take it to the limit and beyond. They force body and machine to the extremes of endurance. Often unpredictable, always spectacular. That's the reason Diamond P Sports has once again opened its action-packed archives to produce a dramatic new video entitled "And They Walked Away Too." The blazing inferno of high performance gone awry. Open-wheel sprint cars locked in death-defying ballets. The heart-stopping drama of unbelievable two-wheel disasters. Awesome displays of man and metal turned to mayhem. To get your copy of "And They Walked Away Too," send $24.95 plus $4 shipping and handling to the address on your screen. Or better yet, call 1-800-767-9700. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. That's 1-800-767-9700. Call today.
The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.